All right, there's only a few pieces left, so we're gonna jump back in, finish off the jetpack, the gun arm, which I'm looking forward to, and then his fist there. And then we'll take another look before we do the finishing touches and see if we've forgotten anything. So I'm just going through and making up some cool tech on this backpack, jetpack thing. And I kind of want this to be fairly symmetrical, so if you are in Photoshop, like I am, go ahead and magic wand areas like this. Copy, paste, go up to image, or actually edit, transform, flip it horizontally, then you can move it where you need it. Kind of save a step. If your body wasn't that symmetrical, it may not line up just perfectly, so you might need to tweak that a bit. If you're working on paper, you can just literally flip your paper over if you're using a light box and just trace it again, which is pretty cool. I'm going to make a new layer because I like to use lots of layers. But you can see that just added a nice symmetrical piece of tech on his back here. I haven't used that Photoshop cheat enough really in this course, so I figured I'd show you some of that. I'm going to do the ammo belt after I do the gun because I'm not really sure what the edges of this gun arm are going to look like quite yet. I talked before about how I have all these different parts and pieces of metal that separate. So now I'm just figuring out where those are and kind of thinking about in my head where they were before they all shifted and moved around. But for the most part, I'm just making it up, which is the fun part. Try stuff out, see if it works. If it doesn't, try it again. Make mistakes. Learn from your mistakes. I have a lot of fun doing the technology type science fiction stuff like this, but at the same time, it's more challenging because you do need some of that symmetry and functionality every now and then, depending on how realistic your story is or how cartoony it is, one or the other. I'm going to let this gun arm be somewhat cartoony. Could really have fun with this and go way overboard. Spend a whole lot of time on it. But I'll try and spare you. I'm also going to consolidate what I've got going on here in my layers. Make sure that whatever you do, you don't merge your roughest layer, this bottom one, with your new lines here. You'll be in trouble later. You won't be able to get rid of those gray lines. So go ahead and I'm going to merge everything except for my newest stuff, which is the gun, and the deepest stuff, the first stuff, the rough that I told you about. So you can always double check to make sure that you didn't make a mistake there before you move on, because that would be the time to hit step backwards. Picture this as kind of like a flat band of metal. So I have the outer edge there, and this is going to be the top, but then it kind of curls here, so I'm going to put the flat edge there. You can see it gives it kind of that 3D look. Just a little bit more interesting than having it be a cord or a tube. Plus it repeats that design pattern that we've been doing all over this guy with the banded metal. So the more you can repeat those certain design themes throughout each of these characters specifically, the cooler it looks and everything kind of comes together. I'm going to have that go up into that part of the jetpack actually. Take a step back, see if you like it. It's looking pretty cool. I think this section of his gun might need a little bit of love. It kind of goes over to one side more than I'd like. That's as simple as adding in some more random pieces of metal here. Yeah, I like that a lot more. You can add a little smoke trail coming off. Like he's just used it. He's not afraid to use it again. So there's only one thing left. Gotta get in that hand. It's normal human hand. The rough version of it looks really bad, so I'm kind of making it up now as I go, and I'll have to, this might end up being my second rough of the hand, depending on how well it comes out. I do that a lot, like even sometimes when I think I had everything roughed out and looking good, turns out it's not that good. So I'm going to turn my rough off and see how I like that. Yeah, so I still think that needs some work. Luckily, it's on its own layer, so I'm just going to select it, I'm going to cut it and then repaste it so that it's on its own layer. Move it into place, turn it down. So now I have a new rough for just that hand that's a little bit closer to what I want. So I made a new layer on top of that where I can try and get it right this time. If you haven't noticed yet, it's all about doing things over and over and over again. But it should be pretty clear that every time it gets a little bit better. It's looking cool. Put a little rivet there. Turn that hand off, the rough one. It's decent. I'm going to fix it up a little bit. Better. All right, so got all my rough layers turned off now. So I'm going to just merge everything except for the background to consolidate here. Now I'm left with just one nice clean drawing. Make a new layer on top of that. And now is when we can get into those finishing touches, things that we talked about, line weight and texturing and things like that. So I'm going to boost my brush up a little bit, just a few ticks. Might be a little too big. So see what you like. That might be good. 15. And I'm going to add line weight to certain areas. I'm doing this all on a separate layer though, so I don't mess up anything that we've already got going. And those areas that I'm going to be adding weight to, remember, are the stuff that's closest to us. So there's not a whole lot of depth to this image, but we're going to try and bring some out. Obviously, his body is closer to us than the jetpack, so I may not even touch the jetpack. You can see just by adding some line weight to the stuff in front of the jetpack, it will push the jetpack backwards into the drawing, just slightly. As I'm doing this, I'm looking around and seeing where I'm going to go next. I'm going to go down the whole body at some point, but I already know right off the bat that the chin and jaw is in front of the neck. So we got to add something on that. And then that microphone is in front of his face. And then this hair is in front of his forehead. So just really quick, step back and you can see that adds a little bit of depth there. I love line weight. It's magic. These pec muscles probably pop out a little bit more than other things on his chest, so I'm going to add just a little bit of thickness to the line under those. So just be on the lookout for areas that you want to bring forward and see if you can do that with this thicker line and try it out. And if it doesn't look good, you can just erase it, move on. You'll get pretty good at recognizing where a drawing might need something like that the more that you do it. Pretty obvious in a lot of these panels on this gun, what's in front of what. And this will really help make it obvious to everyone. So now that we're finishing off all of our line weight, I'm going to just back it up, see if there's any spots that stand out as maybe needing something. I don't really see anything, and there's not a whole lot of texture that I want to add to this guy like we did on the villain. He's more like clean and smooth looking with all this spandex and shiny metal and whatnot. And you can do a lot of those shiny effects when you're dealing with color and shadow and things like that. So you'll want to tackle that later on. But I think he's just about good. Go ahead, take another look at your own drawing and decide for yourself. But there he is, Mr. Good Guy.